You love us, but we're not alone in that. That, Lord, you bring us a family, a body. You bring us relationships and friendships where the love of God is poured out into our hearts through your Spirit as it's found in relationships with one another. Father, that this is where you exist amongst us and over us. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. I'm going to ask you to be seated. Your children's ministry knows that we're going to be running a little bit late. So it's a surprise to you, but not to them. So, but I've asked Mike to come and share a little bit. And so Mike's got some things he's got on his heart that he's going to share with us. And so and I'm going to give you a mic here. Are you going to do it up here?
No.
Okay. Amongst the masses.
Okay. Well, a lot going on today, huh? A lot going on. At least for me. I don't know about you. Maybe it's easier to sit there and sing and stuff too. But well, hello again. I'm like trying to switch hats here, I guess. So I have a letter that I want to read to you that I wrote from my heart on behalf of my wife and myself, and it goes like this. This letter is written from a place I don't quite know how to describe and that I don't know the name of. I'm deeply mystified by what I'm about to share, so if you find yourself confused or unable to adequately relay the meaning of my words to others, please know that we share a similar predicament. Any disorientation resulting from this news would be a signal to me that perhaps in my sharing and your listening that our hearts have met, our shadows have merged, and our eyes have found each other. I welcome you into my confusion, my disorientation, and my curiosity. I'm no longer afraid of these sensations or the consequences to which they lead. The first thing I'm eager to share with you is that I'm stepping down from my position as associate pastor at Real Life Christian Church as of the end of August 2017, this year. So the first question I want to address is, what does that mean for my family? At this point, we have not secured employment anywhere when my position here is vacated, and we are just as curious as you might be as to what we're going to do next. I've not accepted another position somewhere else, and we have no plans to move, and we will be actively searching and applying for work soon. In the meantime, we're fortunate to be in a favorable financial position with an emergency fund that will give us adequate space and time to search for work that fits our family. And my wife is making sure of that, that it fits our family. We're definitely nervous, as is natural when anyone begins to trust in God's provision for them in a new way. I'm interested in tons of stuff, and I just kind of wrote a list off the top of my head of things that I can't stop thinking about, like sustainable agriculture, plant-based cooking, fitness coaching, counseling, coffee roasting, journalism, community development. I could go on and on and on, and I bore my wife regularly with all of the things that I'm curious about. In the short term, I'll be looking for whatever will pay the bills as we transition. Now, next question I want to address is why? Why am I stepping down? And I wanted to start with kind of when our journey at Real Life. When my family moved to Bend in June 2012, we moved to Bend just to be at this church, and we entrusted ourselves to this church. We committed ourselves to you, and among the earnest, hopeful, honest desires I had in becoming a leader, I hoped Real Life would also be a body in which I grew my professional capacity as a pastor and built my resume up with effective, measurable ministry results. I have a hard time even saying the word effective now. It's like a swear word almost. I wanted to be able to tell people what I had done, the initiatives I'd started, and all the change my creative techniques catalyzed. I've constantly daydreamed, and this is not a joke. Sorry, I cut off a little bit. I've constantly daydreamed of being the person that the type of pastor that people interview, that they're mystified as to how did he do it. And so I will rehearse in my head all these questions that people might ask me about what I've done. and imagine being interviewed by someone or being invited to be a speaker at a conference or something. What happened was I came here and I was entrusted with the youth ministry to lead it, and I started hanging out with teenagers. I tried to start thinking like a teenager. What do they like? How do they communicate? What are their interests? What music do they listen to? And I put on a weekly song and pony dance to get their attention. And once my magic tricks had piqued their interest, I set out a series of emotionally charged propositional truths I had memorized in Bible college. Lots of words. I threw every answer I had at them, and I elaborated on every explanation. I was convinced these truths would speak to any circumstance they might be going through, and my Three Stooge-like silliness would keep them coming back to be entertained. Ministry was something that I did for or to others. It was like a service that I provided as a trained, paid, commissioned leader, something that they received from me, that I gave to them, that I did for them. Naturally, I began to get to know them and hear their stories. And before I knew it, these young people became my friends. Keaton is a great example of that. I actually started to care about them. They welcomed me into their stories of pain and fragmentation, and I began to actually feel and hurt for their unimaginable circumstances, their lack of safety, their generally uprooted way of life. I kept spouting words to them about this endless, unconditional, all-encompassing love of God expressed in Jesus, hoping it would bring healing to their wounds, hoping it would make things better. But the more words I said, it didn't necessarily seem to make a difference. And no matter how clever or persuasive my words about God were, they were not the fresh cup of water or the shade from scorching heat for which these kids were desperate and that I hoped my words would be. I began to wonder if maybe my words could not and would not and could not save them. All my ideas about God were inadequate. It's kind of like green eggs and ham. Like I'm Sam trying to give green eggs and ham to the guy, or I'm not Sam. I'm trying to get Sam to eat green eggs and ham. I was discouraged, and there have been many days when I wondered if I was just not an effective enough communicator, or if there was something wrong with me, or if there's something wrong with them. But it's actually been the failure of my words about God that has led me to discover the Word, who became flesh, the person and presence of God, who is not just for me so that I can be for them, but He is with me so that I can be with them. I began to let my caring, affectionate presence for them lead the way, and began to learn how to listen without speaking and how to speak without expecting a response. I thought that if I was to gain influence over them and help direct them into upright moral living, it would be through spending time with them instead of creating programs for them where I got to talk a lot. They would care what I know once they know that I care. But oftentimes I've found that all they really want to know is if I care. What I know, they're not necessarily interested in that even after they know that I care. But they still are wondering if I care. And so being with them has challenged me to actually lay down what I think I know. Being with them, it's not a gateway to influencing them. Being with kids is simply about being with them. And I began to see that they were probably going to make the same choices in their life, whether I was with them and I got to tell them stuff or not. So I actually gave myself permission to stop perceiving them as objects that would count as tallies toward my baptism count or attendance figures, and I started to imagine them as real people. Basically what Saul has struggled with. Once again, as my words failed, so did my presence with them. Once again, I was faced with the truth that not even my presence with them, not even being with them would save them or lead them to predictably accept my propositional truths about their standing with God. And I began to ask questions. Like, what if I can't save them? What if I don't get to decide how they perceive Jesus, how they perceive the Bible and the church? And what if, no matter how many converts I could squeeze out of the youth group or our church, what if those numbers would not save me? What if being a pastor with a title and important words and a reputation and a track record would not save me? Now, during this time, many of you know that I have 1-year-old twin daughters. And their arrival has capped off a 4.5-year period in which we welcomed 4 new kids to the world. Something that Joan Anderson told me last service to count my blessings, and I just said, usually I can't keep count of them because there's so many. So the daily demands of having 4 little ones has proved to be too much for us to handle. I have never felt as though I had so little to offer in my life. And my wife and I are deeply dependent on the care of others to help raise our kids. We have received endless blessing from our church and friends. I could go on and on about it, about everything that you, our church, have done for my family when I had nothing to offer in return. And it's in this abundant care that I have begun to discover just as the spiritual care of middle schoolers and high schoolers is beyond me, so is the physical care of my children, and so is my care for myself. It is fundamentally beyond me. And I've come to realize that in such a that's really a realization that's been forced on me, not something that I like chose and that I educated myself in. And time again, I found myself with empty hands and the overwhelming need of my family forcing my wife and I to receive help. She's a lot better at receiving help than I am. So in the place where I had nothing to offer, God has poured this place, this church, and many others outside it also as a deep gift. I thought I was coming here to offer or to give something or to be of service to you and our community, and that may have happened. That probably has happened. It's to a certain extent, but it turns out that instead we are actually learning to receive ministry, to receive presence faithfully, freely. And so perhaps without knowing it, this church has introduced my wife and me to a new spiritual sight. You've removed the blindfold and given us the gift of neighbor love. You've taught me that abundant life in Christ is not something that can be controlled or protected. Abundant life can only be received and then given away. This is what I'm beginning to believe. The relationships my family has made here have left me with nothing to prove and the freedom to discover neighbor love. I thought I was going to change the world, but I'm learning to accept the world and accept my place in it and to simply love others regardless of whether they change, without an agenda. And so you may be wondering if I plan to keep doing ministry, and that's a difficult question to answer because my understanding of words like ministry and worship and presence have become everyday realities that I receive from you. Ministry is something that's happened to me. Ministry is something that is not something that only professional pastors do. Ministry is what God does in us that we share with others as well. The way God disarms our weary hearts of the ego that ensures everything revolves around us. The abundance our family has received has opened us up to see abundance in everything around us. My wife and I have also become increasingly curious as a result of this about the abundance we might have overlooked in our neighborhood itself. The often severe limitations of parenting twins has helped us to quite literally smell the roses as we are confined to walks around our neighborhood most days. Our lives have slowed down to such an extent that we have had the opportunity to connect with our neighbors in ways we never have before. And we've met many other Christians with whom we share the same street, and we mostly seem to refer to the churches that we all go to kind of like they're grocery stores with features designed just for us. And my wife and I together in that have wondered aloud what it would be like to practice our faith with our neighbors and live in deep community with one another, making church an everyday reality. And we want to learn to receive our neighborhood as an abundant gift for us to explore and interact with. So a consequence of this affectionate imagination that has been passed from you to me and now is moving out from me into our neighborhood is a conscious consequence of this affectionate imagination for the people we live near has been a loss of imagination for doing church as we typically do it. I have a hard time making sense of the way churches like ours do things, and I'm deeply grateful that I've received, especially from our shepherds, over and over and over again as they've listened to me bounce off the guardrails. Where was I? They have given me the grace to free my leadership from the constraints of micromanagement and have given me the permission to discover my underlying curiosities. There are many ways to conceive of church, and I will continue to celebrate cross-shaped ministry as it unfolds at Real Life. And at the same time, I'm confident that I'm being compelled into something distinct from Real Life scope. It's kind of like Moana. If you've ever seen the movie Moana, she has to see what's beyond the reef. And everyone's telling her, it's gonna kill you. You're like, nobody goes out there, and she says she can't hold it any longer. She has to discover what's beyond the reef. So in the meantime, are we gonna keep attending Real Life even after I've resigned? And the answer is yes. My wife and I plan to continue to attend Real Life after my resignation, even as we focus more attention on our neighborhood. Though we will be inevitably less connected here as we pursue a deeper sense of mutual, faithful presence in our neighborhood, as well as pursuing training and leadership formation with regards to innovative community development and cultural identity. I also have a lot of big worldview questions nagging at me that I find it difficult to engage in my current context. And as I contemplate them, it is the patience that so many of you have had with me, the discoveries that I'm making within myself, that is giving me the courage to hold my questions openly and to be patient with myself as well. And it won't be until we kind of come up with a concrete direction, if you want to call it a house church or being an everyday missionary in our neighborhood. We really don't know, but until we kind of come up with something distinct and clear, then we're going to remain where we are here. I've often imagined that my role as a leader at Real Life would never end. It would continue forever, and we would live happily ever after together. However, especially this last year, I felt as if staying here would kind of be like me trying to be the disciples trying to prevent Jesus from experiencing the cross. I've been losing my life being a pastor because I didn't have to prove anything to you. And that messes with me. And so I've been losing this need to form a reputation in this place, and it's been the greatest thing for me. You've been the greatest thing for me because the more I lose, the more I find. My family has never belonged so deeply to another church body, and no matter where we go from here, we will always carry your love with us. Thanks.
All right, so let's stand together, and I want to ask that you grab a hand of the person next to you. You know, I do. You know, the one thing about family is that we walk through change together. And change always brings about a little bit of fear, a little bit of grief, a little bit of excitement. I was thinking about, I mentioned this last service, but many people don't know that Mr. Rogers actually got a degree in child psychology and actually was an ordained Presbyterian pastor. You know, I never known that, but he did great ministry. And so not that Mike's going to be Mr. Rogers, but it would be cool. But I think the idea that ministry takes on all different forms, and we've got to be a part of that's just been huge. So I just want to pray. So Father, I thank you for my brother, my friend here. Lord, I remember when I was 5 years in the youth ministry, I knew that something was stirring in me, that a change was coming, and I ended up here in Bend, that you allowed me to come here to this place and be loved on and to serve. And Father, as hard as it was to leave there, it brought me here, and I believe that you do that with each of us. God, you move us out of one place, but you're taking us to another. And so, Father, I just thank you. I thank you for Mike. I pray for him. I pray for his family. God, that you continue to lead them and guide them and provide for them. And that, Lord, that he knows that this is his family, that we always believe in him, we love him, and that this is his home, no matter where he goes or what he does. We're always going to be proud that we get to call him our friend and our brother. And so, Lord, we thank you. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. So, hey, So Chris and I think Dave's back from wherever, but we're going to be in the back youth room. If you have questions or want to talk to us or pray through something, we're going to be back there for that. I know this has gone extra long, but you can see why, right? So anyways, we want to say thank you. You guys have a great week. Be praying for Mike, and you guys have a great week in the Lord.